Welcome back, horror fans, cinephiles, and giallo enthusiasts. This is Tanner Leeser, your host for all things giallo here on The King in Giallo. Our next stop on our journey through giallo cinema is the fourth giallo film from Umberto Lenzi, An Ideal Place to Kill, also called The Oasis of Fear, released in 1971. In this video, I will do a deep dive overview, then segue into a full review and GialliTally. The overview will be spoiler-free, the review and GialliTally will not. Here is An Ideal Place to Kill. Overview. An Ideal Place to Kill, also called The Oasis of Fear, Dirty Pictures, or Deadly Trap, is an Italian and French co-production. It is directed by giallo veteran Umberto Lenzi, who co-wrote part of the film's script along with Antonio Altoviti and Lucia Dembi. The film's score is composed by Bruno Lauzi. The cast is comprised of Irene Papas as Barbara Slater, Ornella Muti as Ingrid Schumann, Ray Lovelock as Dick Butler, Michel Bardenet as Barty, Jack Stanny as Official, Callisto Callisti as Inspector, and Umberto Rajo as Inspector. The plot of the movie follows Ingrid and Dick, two free love hippies, as they vacation across Italy, paying for everything along the way by selling pornography, some of which includes stuff they have photographed of themselves. They run afoul of the law and are forced to leave the country, but after an encounter with a biker gang has them being targeted for being involved in a bank heist, the two seek refuge at a seemingly empty and very isolated villa. It is not empty, in fact, and they appeal to its owner, Barbara, for help. Their host is very erratic and will pivot on the fly from being welcoming and helpful to aggressive and threatening to call the authorities. Barbara is lonely, susceptible to fits of sexuality, and is hiding something dark and secret. This movie has been described as a sort of reimagining of Orgasmo with a more sympathetic young duo. This would be one of Lenzi's more sexual and seedy contributions to the genre. I marvel at the fact that Lenzi brought us so many giallo films in such a short amount of time, this being his fourth one, and he only began 2-3 years before this. The film has been said to have allegorical ties to the student protest in Paris, which turned violent and halted the French economy during a 7-week tumultuous era deemed May '68. The rebellious spirit of these demonstrations, which were a counterculture and social revolution first and foremost, secondly a sexual revolution, and to a much lesser degree a political one, by many was discredited as being wholly base and corrupted at its core, and by its opponents vilified for trying to dismantle the institutions of the older generations. But its impact reverberated beyond France and Europe, and the echoes of it can still be felt to this day. In the film, Ingrid and Dick drive around in a sports car adorned with flowers and can easily be interpreted as being a threat to the more normal bourgeois society. Contrasting this is the character of Barbara, of which it can be said that she embodies the upper class in the most corrupt and decadent ways. As cunning and manipulative as she is, the duo are equally gullible and manipulated. Lenzi doesn't quite choose a side and spends much of the running time vilifying both at different moments, and the audience's sympathy is meant to sway back and forth as the two competing groups struggle to get the upper hand over the other. Lenzi seems focused in his effort, and the plot is energized, although he does throw a lot of stylistic touches all over the picture. His gialli do tend to get less concentrated stylistically as he goes on, with the best examples of balancing the style being the earliest ones. But by this decade, Lenzi would start transitioning into different genres, including polizieschi and horror. Irene Papas, a Greek actor, plays the enigmatic and potentially deceitful Barbara. She was born in 1929 and began in films in the late 1940s. One of her early film roles was in Theodora, Slave Empress, 1954, a peplum by Riccardo Freda, but she would rise to notoriety by her appearances in such films as The Guns of Navarone, 1961, and Zorba the Greek, 1964. She would work with renowned directors such as Elio Petri in We Still Kill the Old Way, 1967, and Costa Gavras in Z, 1969. Before appearing in this giallo, she had just been in Anne of 1,000 Days, 1969, which starred Richard Burton. She would appear in one more giallo film the following year, Don't Torture a Duckling, 1972 by Lucio Fulci. She retired from film in the early 2000s and passed away in 2022 at the age of 93. Ray Lovelock, who plays Dick, was born in 1950. Supposedly, his first role was an uncredited part in Darling, 1965 by John Schlesinger, but his first noteworthy role would be in Giulio Cesti's highly bizarre, surreal spaghetti western, Django Kill, 1967. On the set for this movie, Lovelock would form a close friendship with Tomas Milian, who would champion for him and secure him roles in some future films, including Bandits in Milan, 1968. Lovelock was also a gifted singer and would sing in many of the films he was in, including An Ideal Place to Kill. He would appear in numerous more giallo films such as Autopsy, 1975, Play Motel, 1979, and Murder Rock, Dancing Death, 1984. Other notable film roles include the cult pictures Let Sleeping Corpses Lie, also called The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue, 1974 by Jorge Grau, and Live Like a Cop, Die Like a Man, 1976 by Ruggero Deodato. Lovelock continued to be active in Italian films and television until his death in 2017. He was 67. Ornella Muti was born in 1955 and made her film debut in The Most Beautiful Wife, 1970 by Damiano Damiani. She was an instant star after the success of said picture. Her looks and exceptional acting ability granted her to hop from one genre to another, and she would go on to appear in Flash Gordon, 1980 by Mike Hodge, Tales of Ordinary Madness, 1981 by Marco Ferreri, as well as Atrocious Tales of Love and Death, 1979 by Sergio Corbucci, a comic giallo. Her most recent role, as of this writing, was in a 2023 picture by Giorgio Amato. She does splendidly in this giallo, although for some, it must be noted that the abundance of nudity in this film on her part was achieved with a body double, Antonia Santilli, which makes perfect sense because Muti was 17 and a half during filming. Here is some IMDb trivia for the movie. Umberto Lenzi wanted to make a hippie road movie in the vein of Easy Rider, 1969, but producer Carlo Ponti insisted the film be a more typical giallo, even suggesting the casting of Carol Baker. Ponti forced Lenzi to change the main characters from drug dealers to pornographers. For the main role, Umberto Lenzi wanted Anna Moffo, a very attractive opera singer who in those years had embarked on the road to cinema. Moffo accepted at first, but later backed out, just a few days before the start of filming, so Irene Papas was chosen, a very good actress who, however, immediately vetoed any nudity. I accepted Irene Papas, explained Lenzi, hoping that she would let me convince her to film at least some of the more daring scenes, leaving the more racy ones to a body double, but I found myself up against a wall. If he can't push with the mature woman, he will push with the young girl, thinks the director, especially since a radiant and already very busty Ornella Muti was chosen for the part. But life wasn't easy with her either. Quote, Muti was stupendous, but when the film was made, she was 17 and a half years old and it was impossible to make her undress. I tried, but once, after showing half a breast, she burst into tears and I had to give up. Moreover, she had a very jealous boyfriend and a mother who was always watching over her. So it was Antonia Santilli, an aspiring actress who had ended up on set by chance as the girlfriend of the director of photography, Alfio Contini, who lent her body for all the spicy scenes of the film, acting as stand-in for both Ornella Muti and Irene Papas. The villa featured in this film had been used previously as the honeymoon cottage in Romolo Guerrieri's The Sweet Body of Deborah, 1968. But I digress. On to the review. Spoilers ahead for those of you who haven't yet seen the film. You've been warned. My prediction for the movie's GialliTally score. The movie has more cliches than it seems to let on. I'll go for 650 to 700 points. Well, let's begin the GialliTally and review portion of the video. Beginning, as always, with the pre-viewing cliches. The repeat offenders are 1 point for actor, 3 for writer, 3 for composer, and 5 for director. Michel Bardenet was in Naked Violence and The Sweet Body of Deborah, 2 points. Umberto Rajo was in The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave, The Cat o' Nine Tails, and The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, 3 points. Carla Mancini, who has a small part in this film, did appear in several gialli before this, but these were mostly all non-speaking roles as characters without names. I won't give any points, but it is interesting to highlight that she was a client at the beauty spa in Black Belly, a nurse in Slaughter Hotel, a lawyer's secretary in Cross Current, and a girl watching TV in The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. Moving on, Tom Falaigi was in The Case of the Scorpion's Tail and The Cat o' Nine Tails, 2 points. Franco Ressel was in Blood and Blacklace and The Girl Who Knew Too Much, 2 points. And Umberto Lenzi wrote Orgasmo and directed A Quiet Place to Kill, So Sweet, So Perverse, and Orgasmo, 18 points. Cliché points for the title, An Ideal Place to Kill, contains the word kill, 5 points. First Look, 25 points for the Italian director, and an additional 15 points for the movie releasing during the golden age of giallo cinema. And would you look at that, it is plot o'clock. Cold Open, 5 points. Foreign locales, Switzerland, 5 points. Urban locales, 2 points. Animals featured, birds, 2 points. Believe me now, I'm not jumping the gun. There's a lot of birds later on. We meet Dick and Ingrid, who are carefree, full of energy, and in love. I like this opening song. It could fool me that this movie is from the 60s.
My dear spirit baby, so you'll never be free.
There's the opening title. They prance around town, marveling at the sights. Art featured, statues, 5 points. Again, not jumping the gun. The intro ends, and the couple enter this sex shop. They buy up a massive stock of porno mags so that during their trip, they can sell them to Catholic residents hungry for some debauchery, so they imply, and thus fund their expedition. They're at a border crossing into Italy, wondering if they should declare what they have in their possession before entering, joking back and forth about how they wouldn't want to break the law, although they'd have to pay a tax on it. They yield and reveal to the border guard that they have in their possession a Toblerone. He lets them through as Ingrid hands him something, saying they'll pick it up on their return. He flips through it and finds that she handed him a dirty magazine. N is for nudity, 5 points. Z is for zoom, 5 points. Italian locales, 3 points. As a throng of tourists marvel at the statues of Michelangelo, with heavy implications that they enjoyed the nudity on display, Ingrid finds her first customers of smut. They continue to find customers, preying on the susceptible. C is for children, 5 points. Ingrid lures this man in, a doctor, and once he shows enough money, assuming sex is part of the transaction, she hands him a dirty mag. On a boat, these two fellas are listening to a recording of love noises, moaning and breathing. They seem satisfied and purchase the record from Dick. F is for fashion, 5 points. Dick reveals to Ingrid that those fellas on the boat bought everything. Cut to them having a feast at a very nice restaurant. Spaghetti would not be anywhere near my first choice, but y'all do you. This is a cute bit where Dick passes the wine down to the cat. The two are now out clubbing. Gratuitous 1970s dancing, 2 points. Hippies, extra if dancing, 5 points. There's this funny bit where Dick goes wild on this drum set, which reminds me of a humorous part from Deadly Sweet. The two are now out flying a kite. They pass it off to this little boy who watches them, and when he pulls the kite in, he finds that it is covered in banknotes. Our duo is now at a social gathering of sorts, pouring champagne all over a bunch of doves. There's a metaphor in here, I just can't be bothered to look for it. The wealthy crowd looks over at them. They toss the birds over everyone's heads to a mixed reception, while Dick yells, "We want peace!" Y is for yelling, 5 points. The managers come over, who all look like they're preparing for a Leonid Brezhnev lookalike contest. Keep growing those eyebrows out, boys. They pay off the managers, then we cut to them frolicking on the beach. They reveal they're already broke and must start up again to keep paying for their journey. We cut to them naked, taking photos of themselves. I'm not a prude with nudity in movies, but filming an adult-themed scene in such a way that you can convey everything you need to without showing it is a sign of competent filmmaking. Dutch angle? Italian angle. They find another prospective customer. This transition is great. And now they're facing criminal charges for selling lascivious material. The police read aloud the couple's basic information: names, ages, and places of origin. The couple are rude and rebellious towards the officers, who then issue them a 24-hour expulsion order, demanding they leave the country immediately or face worse consequences. The next scene features these bikers riding around and performing stunts for each other. I guess they're playing chicken? Dick and Ingrid interrupt them and are intimidated into making up for it. The next scene has them all sitting around a fire, roasting up some birds, while the man who was threatening them in the last scene is now telling them all about his friend over here, Crazy Agostino, who he claims is absolutely crazy if you couldn't tell by his name. All the while, this Morricone-style song plays, which honestly sounds like a song from Takashi Miike's Sukiyaki Western Django.
Lui è Agostino pazzo. È stato primo, il meglio, il solo Agostino. Nessuno è pazzo come lui.
Open your eyes. See for yourself.
The man claims that he could be rich if he wanted to be from betting, but that good people are always deceived. He claims he's the people's hero.
Shut up, bitch!
The modern-day Robin Hood. He convinces them to visit Naples, where the people are more progressive, and he will put on a show for them. The next morning, they awake to find the biker gang has moved on and stolen most of their money. Dick says they must go to Naples now to get their money back. And when Ingrid asks how they will pay for gas with no money, we cut again to Ingrid in a photo booth taking more naked photos. Dick stands guard outside but tells Ingrid she needs to try harder. He is suddenly approached by two nuns collecting charity donations. As they drive along, a gas station attendant reads in the newspaper that bank robbers are suspected to be a young German couple driving around in a sports car with foreign plates. The couple pull up as the attendant looks on suspiciously. Dick approaches him and asks to show him something in private, which he believes will interest the man. They are the photos Ingrid just took. The attendant is hesitant to buy the pictures, and when Dick questions his sexuality, he says, no, it's not that, but perhaps they should wait for the other cars to leave. Immediately, he calls the police. T is for telephone, 5 points. Dick overhears him, and the couple flees without getting gas. Later, the car runs out of gas. Car trouble, 2 points. They reach this villa, which Ingrid describes as an oasis. Dick urges her to help him hide the car because the police have a description of it. They ring the buzzer, and inside we see this woman on the phone, visibly startled and worried about the people outside. She asks the person on the line what she should do. The man on the line says, "Don't worry about it, just pretend you're not there." The couple keeps trying to get anybody's attention. They drop this line here.
Se questa è un'oasi, dove sono I maledetti beduini?
A raccogliere datteri.
Race joke. X is for xenophobia, 5 points. The woman tells the man, Franco, that they've gone, and she repeats aloud 13 kilometers, presumably how far away he is. Dick notices the garage is open, and so they push the car inside for hiding. Immediately, they begin to siphon the gasoline out of the other car. The woman paces, has a drink, then walks through the house when she suddenly hears voices and goes to investigate. I like to pause real quick and point out that this banister and staircase was seen in Perversion Story and The Cat o' Nine Tails. Carry on. She catches them stealing gas and confronts them. Extra points for Y is for yelling, for a hysterical woman yelling, 5 more points. She threatens to call the police and that they broke in looking to steal, but after some back and forth, where the couple explains they tried ringing for help for 10 minutes and that they are just in need of some help and are starving, she relents to allow them to take the gas. Dick says they have enough gas now. She tells them to leave, and they do, but she then apologizes and offers them a meal. She explains that she had sent all the servants away because her husband and her were planning to leave soon, that he should be back any time. Exposition dumping, 2 points. Nick points out that she's very nervous, and he seems to flirt with her. Ingrid freshens up and looks through the clothes, which she clearly takes a fancy to. Dick asks about the woman's husband. She tells him that he's a colonel at NATO. He keeps questioning her, so Q is for questions, 5 points. She asks, what about them? And Dick tells her while making some morbid embellishments, which she points out as lies, but that she assumes that they are in trouble with the law. L is for lies, 5 points. Dick tells her the truth and that their choices were to go north to follow the expulsion order, or go south and be rebels, and she agrees that she would have done the same. Dick kisses her. Clearly uncomfortable, she asks where's Ingrid. He quips about Ingrid having stolen the woman's car. She goes to find her, just as Ingrid is walking down the stairs in what I can only describe as a costume, while the worst stereotypical music plays. If I hadn't already added X for xenophobia moments ago, I would be adding it here. But it's all in good fun. We briefly cut to Franco, who appears to be waiting. The next scene, in short, has Ingrid and Dick talking about themselves, how they came about this lifestyle, and spiting some philosophical jargon. I enjoyed this one line that Dick says here.
Noi siamo degli schiavi volontari. Gli schiavi possono ribellarsi e i padroni no.
They continue to talk. Clearly, the woman has warmed up to them. Her name is Barbara, by the way. The duo says this vacation is actually a mission of sexual liberation to rescue the people here from their sexual repression, and they ask Barbara to come along with them. When Ingrid picks up a photo of a man in military regalia and asks if this is Barbara's husband, she snaps and becomes defensive. The phone rings. It is Franco, who asks what is going on, that he's been waiting, and if something is the matter. She says, no, the plan has changed. She won't be able to call him tomorrow, but not to worry. Then she hangs up. Dick asks if it was another man. Barbara says, so what if it was? The couple decide they've stayed long enough and should get out of Barbara's hair now. Ingrid goes upstairs to change. Barbara tries to call back, but it doesn't work. Dick calls down Ingrid and tells her that they have been invited to stay the night. We cut to them later drinking and dancing to music. Ingrid watches on with envy as Dick and Barbara dance together. The song ends, Barbara opens up another bottle, then Ingrid turns on the sitar music again and attempts to belly dance for them. The show goes on. Ingrid takes her top off. The music ends, and Barbara notices she is out of cigarettes and asks Dick to grab more from the glove compartment. In the glove compartment, however, he finds a gun, and since he is a boy, he has to play pretend with it. Someone interrupts him and flashes a light in his face. It is Barbara. She tells him to stop playing with the gun, to put it back, and that she's found more cigarettes in a drawer inside. Inside, we have perhaps one of the more tasteless moments of this film. Ingrid writes pigs on the mirror, like she's part of the fucking Manson family. I'm not particularly offended, but I'll say that this is pretty provocative considering that the Tate murders were less than 2 years prior to this. Mirror is being used beyond its natural purpose. 2 points. Ingrid makes presumptions about Barbara and pries to get her to confide in her. Barbara admits that she has a desire to kiss Ingrid's boyfriend. Ingrid says so be it and orders Dick to kiss Barbara. They smooch hardcore. Ingrid is embittered by their passion. She orders them to stop, but they don't, so she asserts once more. They stop. Barbara is showing them where they will be sleeping. She kisses Ingrid goodnight on the foot. Sure. Barbara leaves and returns to her room. The couple talks about Barbara. What's up with her? She's cool one moment, and the next she's treating us like kids, man. They ponder that she likely wants to sleep with one of them, or both. Inside her room, Barbara takes a pair of keys, walks outside, and tosses them into the pool. How come? Not sure yet, but let's add odd clue, 5 points. And evidence seen being hidden or destroyed, 5 points. As she smokes a cigarette outside, Dick spies on her from the window. They meet in the hallway and she invites him into her room. She shuts the lights off and the two begin kissing. She undoes his fly. Necking, 5 points. I is for infidelity, 5 points. I'm going to be as kosher as I can about this next part. She unveils herself, kneels before him, and, oral, 7 points. Ingrid wakes up and looks for Dick. She finds them in the next room, nude, and embracing passionately. Despite this situation, I will not be counting this as the characters aardvarking. At least, I don't consider this as us seeing it. Ingrid flees the scene, enters her room, grabs some mini shears, then collapses and begins weeping. The next morning, Barbara wakes up, and while Dick sleeps, she places a wad of money into his pants pocket, takes the belt, locks him inside the room, locks Ingrid inside her room, and then completely cleans up the party scene from last night. Dick wakes up, discovers the cash inside his pocket, and that he is locked in. He calls out to Ingrid, who likewise finds out that she is locked in. Dick escapes through the window, doing a stunt that makes me shudder. I would have done this no problem 10 years ago. This is how I know I'm getting old. Dick circles the house. Barbara is on the phone asking for the police. Dick disconnects the phone and confronts her. He calls her a bitch and tosses the money in her face. Let's add, typical 1970s Italian misogyny, woman is called a bitch. 3 points. Dick confronts Barbara for planting the money, for locking him in, and for cleaning up the party. He knows she is up to something. He notices that she's also given herself scratch marks on her chest. Barbara denies their accusations and asserts that she was calling the police because her husband didn't show up. They call bullshit, and Barbara commands them to leave. They say they will, but only when they know they can leave without her trying to contact the police. Later on, the couples are talking in private, but loud enough so that their conversation is no longer private, and they discuss a plan. Dick will go into town. They agree they steal some money from Barbara since she was expecting them to be thieves anyway. We see Franco trying to call the house. K is for knives, 5 points. While Ingrid stays and guards Barbara, Barbara confides to her that she and her husband had a terrible quarrel the night before and he had struck her. Ingrid is dismissive of this. Barbara continues to explain her actions this morning, seemingly not having an adequate answer for everything, which Ingrid picks up on. Barbara continues to lament that she is now terrified of her husband. In town, Dick purchases 2 cans of black paint so that they can disguise the car for their escape. While in town, he finds that Agostino is there as well. First person POV, 5 points. Reckless driving, 5 points. Agostino terrorizes this local cafe, performs dangerous stunts, and ultimately acts like a menace. Dick blocks his path and demands his 30,000 lira back that Agostino had stolen. Agostino says he'll give him half, for even folk heroes must eat. Dick seems happy enough with this. You know, it's not like he actually earned that money through honest work anyway. We have this scene of the aftermath of a traffic accident. Franco claims to be a lawyer on his way to meet a client. They let him pass through. An eyewitness of the crash is giving a statement that he saw a gray car with foreign plates cause the crash. Dick rides up on a bike, but turns the other way when he sees the police. They notice him and ask him to stop. We cut back to the 2 women who are having girl time. Barbara gives Ingrid one of her fur coats as a gift. She applies lipstick to Ingrid, who is silent. Then she kisses her and sort of fondles her. I'll add queer characters bi or lesbian, 5 points. Ingrid pushes Barbara to the floor, accusing her of, again, trying to entrap the young couple. Ingrid pulls the knife out and threatens Barbara to sit still and be quiet. A car horn honks outside. Ingrid checks it out and finds Franco outside honking. Ingrid ignores him, and so he drives off. Suddenly, Barbara attacks Ingrid. The 2 fight, Ingrid with the knife and Barbara with a mirror? Now that's a mirror being used beyond its natural purpose. They struggle. The knife is dropped, then the mirror is dropped. Then Barbara takes control and tries to flee out the door, but Ingrid catches her and they continue. Palm to the face, hair pull, titty punch.
My titties!
Barbara escapes. Spiral staircase, 5 points. Outside, she is cut off by Dick, who is oblivious to the recent altercation. He presents her with a flower, then pays her and guides her back inside. In the garage, the couple plans their escape. Besides painting the car, Ingrid points out their plates are known to the police, and so they try to take Barbara's plates, but they are screwed on. Then they try to break into the trunk so that they can get at the plates from the other side. They pop the trunk and BAM! Extra points for Z is for zoom on a dead victim, another 5 points. Inside the trunk, they find a dead man with gunshot wounds. Stuffed around the dead man's grip is Dick's belt. She was attempting to frame them. Dick declares they must call the police and straighten things out, but he realizes the gun from last night has his prints on it. He goes to retrieve it, but it is missing now. She has hidden it. They get Barbara, and Dick burns his belt in front of her. Barbara immediately pretends they're the killers. Dick calls her out for this being the reason for her acting so nervous yesterday, as well as why she had invited them in the first place, so that she could frame them. Typical 1970s Italian misogyny, woman is told to shut up. 2 points. Dick demands to know where the gun is, but Barbara becomes obstinate and refuses to speak. Suddenly, the sound of an approaching car is heard outside the garage door. Dick restrains and muffles Barbara. Barbara defies him and kicks a drum over. From outside, a voice asks if anyone is there. Ingrid goes to the door. She lies to the officer, telling him that the colonel and Barbara have gone out of town and that she is visiting and staying for a short time. The officer reveals a couple more officers standing by. They go in and begin inspecting the cars, which he says a similar American car was involved in a recent hit and run, and they just need to verify that the cars were not involved. A sound behind the garage door grabs the officer's attention. Close up on a door handle, 5 points. Franco then shows up and notices the police presence in the garage. The officers are about to give a more thorough inspection of the vehicle. E is for eyeballs, 5 points. Before they can open the trunk, Ingrid pretends to faint and the men take her outside. Is it just me, or is this dude a bit touchy here? Like, that was an acting choice, I mean. She tells them that she's pregnant, we jump forward a bit, and they are leaving. Ingrid is informed to have the colonel call when he returns. One of the other officers asks Ingrid if the other car is hers. After a tense moment, she says yes, and he tells her that she has a broken taillight. Then they leave. Add useless police for them not finding the dead body in the trunk, whereas they clearly were a moment away from discovering it. 2 points. Ingrid runs back inside. They drag Barbara and lie her down and contemplate leaving immediately. Dick says first they must repaint the car and find the gun with his prints. They interrogate Barbara, who refuses to tell them anything. She says perhaps Ingrid took it after catching them in bed together, and he slaps her. Typical 1970s Italian misogyny, woman is slapped, 5 points. Ingrid warns Dick not to rough her up, for it will not help them if the police do get involved. Dick threatens Barbara with cigarette burns now. Dick kicks Ingrid out of the room as he threatens to burn Barbara, but ultimately he cannot go through with it and he storms out in frustration. Later that night, the couple are painting the car black. They agree to drug Barbara with sleeping pills. Ingrid goes inside. Inside the locked room, Ingrid finds that Barbara has escaped out the window. She goes to look out the window and suddenly the door shuts. She's been duped. Barbara runs downstairs. Foot chase, 5 points. Extra points for the spiral staircase being used during a chase, 2 more points. Ingrid calls out to recruit Dick to chase Barbara. She eludes him, but he catches on and gives chase. Dick chases her into an aviary. Barbara grabs a weapon. Extra points for Z is for a zoom on a weapon, 5 more points. Barbara sneaks up. The birds go berserk and Barbara begins slashing at Dick. Extra points for K is for knives, for the blade reflecting the light, 5 points. The fray goes on for a good while. Ingrid shows up just as Dick is disarming Barbara. Later, they are mocking Barbara, who they jest will receive new clothes in prison. A voice from without calls up. The lights have betrayed them. Dick tells Barbara to tell the man good night. This is Pietro. He says he saw the lights on and thought that she and her husband were leaving on a trip, but Barbara says that she'd changed her mind. He mentions hearing noises in the aviary and offers to go check it out, but she says no, it's fine. She bids him goodnight, and so he leaves. Later on in the night, we see a lot of sleeping pills and over-the-counter drugs sitting out on the nightstand, and they have certainly made a powerful sedative cocktail for Barbara, who we see knocked out in bed. Character takes prescription pills or sedatives, 5 points. A motorbike is heard outside. A man shows up, rings the buzzer, and tries the door, then slips a telegram under the door. The message says that the sender has tried to reach Barbara. Dick assumes this must be her partner in crime, and he burns the telegram. The two decide the safest thing for them to do is to hide the body. They bury the colonel outside in the backyard. Personally, I'm going to say I think this is really stupid because now they are actually involved. Suddenly, they hear barking. It is Troll, Pietro's German Shepherd. After a moment, Pietro calls Troll away. After another moment, the two finish up the burial. Ingrid has an idea of the gun's whereabouts. She goes into the garage, and damn it, someone has removed all the black paint that they had spent all afternoon painting on the car. Ingrid's assumption, though, is correct. The gun was hidden in their car to incriminate them. Dick wipes his prints off the gun, then he manipulates Barbara's hands to clutch the gun and thus put her prints on it, and finally, he cuts off his hair. He rips off his rebel fist patch from his jacket and dresses himself to look like a chauffeur. The two make their escape. U is for undercover, 5 points. Pietro spies them leaving, and he and Troll go to investigate. Troll runs to the trunk and begins barking. Well, hold on, the body's not in there anymore. The couple is miles away now. Cut back, Barbara has been rescued and is with the police now. Her husband's body is taken away. Pietro explains his suspicions and what had occurred. An officer brings in something found in the garage, a photo reel from a photo booth of Ingrid posing naked. The couple's plan has backfired, and the police are convinced now that they are in fact the murderer of the colonel, and they had staged the crime scene to appear as though Barbara had done it. Franco is there to testify that Barbara had come to him days ago expressing her desire to adopt. He says he's sure the colonel would have embraced the idea since they were childless, which, by the way, is perhaps the reason why she had killed him, meaning he was vehemently against adoption. Franco goes on to say that if only when he had dropped Barbara off days ago that he had gone inside and that maybe he could have prevented this whole thing. Nicely done. The police ask Barbara how she and her husband got along. She says, well. They ask if he had any relatives. She says no. And so they deduce that she is his only heir. She says, I don't know. And I think we found our motive. The inspector asks how her husband died. We see a couple flashbacks, and she lies and says that when she was dropped off by her lawyer, that she had planned to talk to her husband about the adoption, but the hippies were there and they shot him. Barbara says she passed out, and when she came to, they had bound her and gagged her and disconnected the phone, which her lawyer confirms to the police that he had tried to call. They ask her what she thinks their motive could have been, and she says she assumes they planned to rob the house, and they'd killed him when they found out that the house wasn't empty. She says that over 300,000 lira is missing from a drawer. The last thing she says is that the man raped her. Cut back to the couple driving along the shore, and Ingrid begs Dick to stop so they can swim, asserting that Barbara must still be asleep and that they got away scot-free. They then are swimming, enjoying themselves. They make out and are in utter bliss. We then see a roadblock near them when an officer notices the kids swimming. He recognizes them as the culprits and says to call it in. Dick and Ingrid are ready to leave, but Dick hears a radio broadcast talking about the murder and robbery, and he shuts it off so as not to disturb Ingrid. They try to drive off, but are stopped by the police blocking their escape. They turn the other way, and the chase is on. Car chase, 7 points. And graciously add driving on a winding road on a mountain setting. It's fairly close enough. 2 points. A dog crosses their path, and they swerve to miss it, but they drive off the cliff. This fake body is so bad that you can see the mannequin's head fly off, or maybe that's a wig. Let me add mistaken identity. Someone else is believed to be the killer. 5 points. And that's the movie. But let me stop to add S's for secrets. Extra points if the killer had an impossible to predict motivation. 10 points. Maybe a bit of a stretch. Extra points for T is for telephone, for the killer making a call. 5 more points. And set in a manor or chateau, and extra points for a group of friends being there for a duration of the film. 10 points. Sure, I'm stretching this, but it's fine. I will not be adding hidden identity of the killer until the final moments because we find out way before the climax who the killer is, nor the killer is killed by someone because, well, duh, she doesn't get killed. And that's an ideal place to kill. So yeah, I like this movie. I mean, it's fine. It's certainly more original than a lot of the other giallo copycats which recycle a similar plot and try to reinvent it. I give it props for that. But yeah, it is a little slow. We don't really see any kills besides the car crash. It is like Orgasmo, but inverse, and I do like Dick and Ingrid more than Peter and Ava. I would like to see these two couples face off in a battle of wits, though. That would be fun. I think Dick and Ingrid are interesting characters. Not entirely sure if members of their ilk would call them hypocrites or not. I mean, they enjoy life and being carefree, but once they have money, they go nuts with it and splurge all of it in less than 24 hours. They are frivolous, and although they are not stingy with the money and even give money out freely, they very clearly do not understand the value of a dollar or respect the notion of an honest day's work. You know, the thing that most everybody in society who they look down on are all contributing to in order for them to be enjoying nightclubs and restaurants and flying kites. It's interesting because they act like money corrupts, but they also love money. Maybe they should go live off the land, buy some animals, and see if they'd be happy. Anyways, let's segue to the GialliTally cliches for this movie. Post-giallo viewing cliches. The reason for the killing. Greed and gain, 5 points. The reason for the investigation. Well, there isn't really an investigation in this movie except for when the police get involved. So yeah, police investigator, 2 points. Bonus points. Style bonus. Okay, y'all, it's Lenzi. So yes, we have a lot of style, and yes, we have perhaps an abundance. There are a lot of zooms, but I think they serve the visual storytelling better than they did in his last two, where he seemed to not understand what he had done right in his first giallo, and just kind of threw them everywhere. There are still occasional stylistic flares which are for shits and giggles, like the kaleidoscopic shot, which this movie has 2 of for no particular reason. Beyond this, we have focus racks, a POV for the motorcycle, but not much else. It seems like he only chose a few techniques for this film, and for the most part, he chose them wisely. Out of a max total of 25 points, I will give 12 points for the style bonus. Soundtrack.
So you never be free. So you never
Quando sto in coppa a motocicletta so comodo.
I want a one, I want a two, I want a dibba dibba dibba.
Yes, 15 points. Bad effects? Those fake bodies. Absolutely, 15 points. Final look, extra points. The Deadpool tallying how many kills and deaths are featured in the film. I break it down as thus: 10 points per kill or death scene for the main Deadpool, plus any stylistic kill multipliers, which we didn't add yet, plus the knife kill bonus. We have the Colonel killed by gunshots, 10 points. Dick vehicular, 19 points. Ingrid vehicular, 19 points. Extended Deadpool for those other deaths mentioned but not seen, I'll give 3 points for each. The girl killed in the road accident, 3 points. Red herrings for the total number of legitimate suspects in the film. 5 points per legit suspect are awarded. Do we really have any red herrings? I guess I'll say we have Barbara and Franco. 10 points for red herrings. Flashback sequences, 5 points each. We have 1 and 2. You know, they are kind of from the same moment, but I'll give it 2. 10 points for flashbacks. Nudity, I award 5 points for ass, 7 for breasts, and 10 for genitalia. We have breasts, everything. I was conflicted on this. So the Dirty magazine does depict people in different positions of, but I decided for my tally system that does not constitute aardvarking because we don't see it in the movie, we see it in pictures. Very different. Breasts, ass, breasts, 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 everything. Ass, breasts, and breasts. 110 points for nudity. Ladies and gentlemen, for An Ideal Place to Kill, I awarded the film an AZ score of 14 out of 26. With the bonus points for these, we have a modified score total of 100 points. And for the full GialliTally score, I award An Ideal Place to Kill a GialliTally score of 515 points. Compared to Slaughter Hotel in first with 827 points, A Lizard in a Woman's Skin in second with 759 points, and The Case of the Scorpion's Tail in third with 741 points. An Ideal Place to Kill is somewhere down the line, I think around 13th place. I predicted the movie would do like 150 points better. I mean, it did fine, but there weren't enough kills, I think, to really carry it. Like I say, these points do not mean a movie is better or worse. Please like this video, share it with your friends if they are horror fans or cinephiles, subscribe to The King in Giallo if you haven't yet, and if you have any questions, thoughts, curiosities, or concerns, leave those below in the comments section and I will get back to you, including questions you might want me to answer in upcoming Q&A segments. Give The King in Giallo a follow on Instagram and a like on Facebook. Subscribe to The King in Giallo Patreon to see early access to my videos, with some videos now able to be seen up to over a month in advance, plus exclusive content found only there, such as The Viewings and The King in Giallo Podcast, the Giallo Adjacent Podcast, the Rat Hole Burn movie reviews, Let's Plays for Giallo-inspired games, and the Giallo Reads book reviews for Giallo-inspired books. Next time on The King in Giallo will be the overview, review, and GialliTally for the second Giallo film from Ricardo Frida, The Iguana with the Tongue of Fire. Thank you very much for your continued support. This is Tanner Leeser for The King in Giallo, and if nothing else, I'll see you next time.
Dang, dang, dang.